Alright, let's be honest, picking the right pet in Lost Sword can feel like trying to win the gacha lottery. You roll, you hope, and then you get a 5-star pet that looks cool but doesn't do much. We've all been there. That's why today we're breaking it all down with our Lost Sword pet tier list. Whether you're new to the game or trying to optimize your lineup, we're here to help you figure out which 5-star pets are actually worth your hard-earned rolls. In this video, we'll go through the strongest and most useful pets in the game, ranking them from absolute beasts to, well, just pretty decorations. Some of them will boost your damage like crazy, others bring utility that can turn a fight around. And yes, we'll also call out the ones that look awesome but just don't pull their weight in battle. Let's get into it and see which pets truly deserve a spot on your team. I'm quickly moving on to the video and I'm ranking pets in Lost Sword. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of tier list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The pets in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Diane checked and Elizabeth. Okay, let's rip the band-aid off. Yes, we're in D tier now. This is the part of the tier list where dreams go to nap. Not fully dead, just tired. First up, we've got Diane Checked, a 5-star pet who technically heals all allies for 2.5% of their maximum health every second, lasting for a total of 10 seconds. Sounds solid, right? Here's the catch. Her healing ability only activates once per wave. Yup, just once. That means in anything longer than a sneeze, she's already on break. Sure, she can help you pass basic survivability checks, but as a frontline pet, she might as well be handing out juice boxes from the back row. Then we've got Elizabeth, another 5-star pet, and probably the first shiny companion you'll get from the pre-registration rewards. She boosts all allies' resistance to status effects by 10% for 20 seconds, and while that sounds helpful, the truth is, she's more about the vibes. Her real value lies in her defensive stat line. It leans into bulk, without actually offering maximum health boosts like true HP pets. In other words, she's like the friend who shows up to help you move, but forgets to bring any muscle. The pets in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Galahad, Katrine, and Morgana. Now things start to get a bit more interesting. Welcome to C tier, aka the land of almost great, but not quite. These pets aren't total benchwarmers, but they also won't be carrying your team to glory anytime soon. They've got potential, sure, but it's kinda like showing up to a sword fight with a letter opener. Let's break it down. Starting with Galahad, a 5-star pet that proudly brings his shield to the party. He summons a barrier that blocks damage equal to 30% of his own attack stat, and it sticks around for 20 seconds. Stat-wise, Galahad is unique. He's probably the only pet that prioritizes defense as a core attribute, and his entire kit leans into defensive synergy. Most players still default to pure health point, HP pets for survivability, but Galahad can definitely hold his ground if you're strategic with your team composition. Think of him like the cool uncle who's not the strongest guy in the room, but knows when to step in and absorb a hit or two. Next up is Katrine, another 5-star pet with a 20% critical damage boost for all allies that lasts 20 seconds. Sounds spicy, right? Well, here's the catch. Her damage reduction stat, arguably the most valuable thing about her, only unlocks at tier 3, which puts a bit of a damper on her performance until you've invested heavily. Her active ability offers a nice CDMG buff, but let's be honest, by the time you factor in gear and artifacts, critical damage is usually already overcooked. She's fine for PvE, but not quite the powerhouse she could have been. And finally, Morgana, our third 5-star contender, who boosts the attack stat of all allies by 12% for 20 seconds. Her stats lean toward the useful side, nothing too flashy, but nothing terrible either. The downside is that her status effect resistance can be unreliable without some lucky rerolling, and much like Katrine, her attack bonus tends to get drowned out by all the other sources in the game offering the same thing. She's like your favorite side dish, not the reason you came to the feast, but not something you'd push off your plate either. The pets in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Anessa, Cersei, Erin, Eva, Isabel, Kay, Lancelot, and Vivian. B tier. This is where things get weirdly competitive. These pets aren't just your average fillers, they're useful, flexible, and sometimes even essential in niche team comps. They're not quite meta-breaking, but they bring enough spice to keep things flavorful. Let's dive into the beautifully flawed world of the B tier squad. First up, we have Anessa, a 5-star pet who goes full Elsa and freezes every enemy within range. The freeze debuff shuts enemies down for 2 full seconds. Doesn't sound like much, but that moment of silence can be all it takes to swing a fight. She's got a nice blend of offensive stats, just a step behind heavy hitters like Athena or Tiamat, and her crowd control ability makes her shine in comps focused on chaining disables. In Anessa-centered setups, her freeze-up time can surprisingly deal comparable damage to pets like Phoenix. Chill, literally and figuratively. Then there's Cersei, who is, let's say, unconventional. She gives all allies a 5% critical resistance buff for 20 seconds, but that's not why players love or fear her. Cersei comes with massive stat leans, 45% health point, 45% attack, and a whopping 25% additional damage. That's huge, but here's the twist. At tier 5, she actually lowers your whole team's critical rate by 10%. Oof, still, for seasoned raid grinders who are used to running crit reset loops, that 25% additional damage stat can be totally worth the trade-off. Moving on to Eren, another 5-star pet who boosts everyone's attack stat by 12% for 20 seconds. At first glance, that sounds like a dime a dozen effect, but Eren's unique selling point is that she's the only pet whose primary stat is damage reduction. The downside, she gives up a lot of health point stats to get there. Also, the 12% attack buff on her active is kind of redundant considering how often that stat is already maxed out by gear. Still, if you're looking for a tanky backbone with some personality, Eren's got your back. And hey, she's cute. That counts, right? Say hello to Eva, the quiet achiever of the bunch. Her active boosts everyone's defense by 12% for 20 seconds. Not flashy, but useful. Her real value comes from being one of the rare health point pets with additional damage as a second line. That stat combo makes her a solid choice for Lancelot carry comps, especially if your pet box is missing the more premium options like Kay or Lancelot themselves. She's not a headline act, but Eva's definitely got that solid support energy. Isabel steps up next with some real bite. Her active deals area damage equal to 272% of her attack stat, and reduces the enemy's attack by 8% and lowers their critical hit rate by 8. That's a lot of utility packed into one move. Her stat line fits well with Lancelot teams, though the presence of block chance feels a little random unless you're stacking it intentionally. Still, in tight fights, where any bit of debuff matters, Isabel might be the surprise MVP. Now let's talk about Kay, who plays favorites in the most intense way. She boosts the attack of your ally with the highest current attack, but also slaps them with a 10% defense reduction for a whopping 100 seconds. That's a long relationship. Her stats are excellent for offensive Lancelot comps, especially her additional damage second line, which caps at 15% at tier 5. She also gets a 15% ignore damage reduction boost at tier 3. All that makes her a must-have for hyper-aggressive builds that don't mind living dangerously. Speaking of Lancelot, we've also got the Lancelot pet herself. She deals damage based on 77% of her own health point stat, which is pretty unique. Like Kay and Eva, she brings additional damage as a second line, super handy for stat stacking. She's a solid all-rounder with a good mix of offensive stats. Not top tier, but if you're running Lancelot comps and need some solid numbers, she'll absolutely do the job. And finally, we have Vivian, a 5-star pet that's all about tearing through defensive buffs. She increases ignore damage reduction for all allies by 15%, a big deal in maps filled with bulky enemies, and reduces their critical hit rate by 5%. That trade-off might sting a bit, but it's usually worth it if you're dealing with bosses who laugh in the face of regular damage. She's also the first pet to offer ignore damage reduction as both a stat and an active buff. In tough tanky maps like Walls, Vivian isn't just viable, she's practically essential. In short, B-tier pets are like that group of reliable college friends. Not the flashiest, but they show up, pull their weight, and sometimes save the day when you least expect it. The pets in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Bedivere, Griffin, Guinevere, Joan of Arc, Lisa, Ennio Bedivere, Phoenix, Ran, and Tristan. Welcome to our tier, where the pets mean business. These are the top tier workhorses, dependable, powerful, and sometimes just a breath away from S tier glory. They bring big stats, solid actives, and enough versatility to earn their spot in serious team comps. Sure, a few have their quirks, but overall, this group is stacked with power players who consistently deliver results. Let's kick things off with Bedivere, a 5-star powerhouse who dishes out area damage equal to a whopping 299% of her attack stat. But don't let that flashy number fool you. The real prize here is her ignore damage reduction stat line, unlocked at tier 3. She also comes with solid damage reduction and attack bonuses, which make her a defensive-offensive hybrid that's hard to pass up. Her only real letdown is the tier 5 health point recovery stat. It's niche at best and irrelevant in most setups. Still, she hits hard, lasts long, and knows how to carry her weight in a proper comp. Griffin swoops in next, offering a 20% critical damage boost for all allies over 20 seconds. On paper, that sounds very similar to Morgana, but Griffin operates in the health point scaling zone, making him the go-to frontline choice for Lancelot comps. Sure, critical damage tends to be overloaded in many builds due to passives and gear, but Griffin still manages to shine by offering reliable numbers and a dependable frontline presence. A textbook example of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Then there's Guinevere, the queen of support. Quite literally, she's the only pet with a cleanse ability. Her active removes all harmful debuffs from your party, and it only triggers when such debuffs are actually present. This makes her an incredibly smart pet, and one that you won't notice until things start going very wrong. She doesn't add raw damage or tankiness, but she saves your team from being crippled mid-fight. If you're struggling with status-heavy stages, Guinevere is a no-brainer. Next up, Joan of Arc. She might not bring dramatic visuals to the table, but she's one of the few pets that actively buffs your entire team's health points by 12% for 20 seconds. That's a massive survivability bump, especially for Lancelot comps pushing high adventure stages. Her stat leans mirror those of Asteria, just leaning more into HP than damage reduction. While HP bonuses are often overstacked through other means, Joan still fills a nice niche for teams that need to tank up and dig in. Let's talk about Lisa, a 5-star pet who dishes out damage equal to 150% of her attack stat to all enemies and applies a prevent attack debuff. That debuff prevents enemies from taking action, making her a CC option. The downside? Her cooldown is longer than other pets with similar effects, and she lacks damage reduction in her stat line, which knocks her below titans like Asteria. She's essentially Asteria Light, but sometimes Light is still good enough to get the job done. Then we've got Ennio Bedivere, a remix of the original with a hybrid approach. She boosts critical damage by 10% and critical hit rate by 5%, a dual effect active that essentially fuses Phoenix and Griffin into one. Unfortunately, in trying to do both, she ends up doing neither perfectly. Her hybrid stat line is great for mixed scaling comps, like some Lancelot builds, but newer pets offer more specialized value. Still, if you pull her early or need flexible support, Ennio Bedivere is a solid addition to your lineup. Now, onto the legend herself, Phoenix. This pet has been meta since launch, and for good reason. A clean, reliable 10% critical hit rate boost with nearly perfect uptime, plus stellar offensive stats. That's hard to beat. She slots effortlessly into almost any attack scaling team and brings consistent value at even tier 2. The only time you'll leave Phoenix on the bench is when you're going full HP scaling or fighting high crit resist enemies. Otherwise, she's practically an honorary member of S tier. Then there's Ran, a 5-star pet that pairs Athena's high-value stats with a ridiculously short cooldown active. She deals damage equal to 244% of her attack stat, and if the enemy is shocked, that number doubles. Yep, 100% more damage on a 5-second cooldown. She's a monster in Ranlua teams and arguably one of the best frontline pets available right now. With her explosive synergy and rapid rotation, Ran is what happens when a DPS pet chugs 3 energy drinks and jumps into the fight. Last but definitely not least, Tristan. Think of him as Asteria's cousin, with all the same flair but a different flavor of control. His active deals damage equal to 150% of his attack stat and applies the root debuff, which disables enemy actions for 2 seconds. While Asteria uses fear, Tristan uses root, great for enemies that are immune to one but not the other. He even shares Asteria's stat leans, making him an equally deadly addition. If you roll Tristan or Asteria, you're basically covered no matter what you face. A tier pets may not always steal the spotlight, but they consistently show up when it matters most. Whether it's big buffs, sneaky crowd control, or solid stat lines, this crew knows how to make your team shine. The pets in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Athena, Christina, Asteria, Alua, Merlin, and Tiamat. Welcome to the top of the food chain S tier, where the pets don't just participate, they dominate. These are the cream of the crop, ones you build your entire comp around. Whether it's insane damage, irreplaceable crowd control, or just pure stat line perfection, these pets define the meta and often are the meta. If you've got one of these in your lineup, you're already playing on hard mode for your enemies. Let's start strong with Athena, a 5-star pet that delivers a devastating single target nuke with her active skill, 765% of her attack stat in raw damage. That alone would be enough to turn heads, but what truly cements Athena's place in S tier is her flawless stat line. Every one of her stats is tailored for offense. Attack percentage, additional attack, critical damage, you name it, she's got it. Sure, newer pets have entered the scene with similar stat setups, but Athena's consistency, raw damage, and no-nonsense role as a boss shredder make her one of the best offensive pets from launch to this day. Next up is Christina, the fiery menace with the first ever 75% attack as a primary stat. Her active deals 150% attack damage to all enemies in range and applies the burned debuff, dealing another 100% attack damage per second for 3 seconds. Christina is built for aggressive comps and shines especially in fights where enemies have high critical resistance, because burn damage doesn't care about crits. Her stat leans are offensively focused, and she's perfect for melting down anything that tries to hide behind big resistances. Then we have Asteria, the queen of adventure progression. She hits all enemies for 150% of her attack stat and inflicts fear, disabling them for 2 whole seconds. This crowd control alone is enough to elevate her into S tier, but her stat leans, blending damage reduction, attack, and critical damage, make her an absolute staple in any content that allows CC. If you're climbing through adventure stages or dealing with tricky mobs, Asteria is often the first and sometimes only pet you'll want by your side. Unless the enemy is immune to CC, Asteria is the strategy. Moving on to Lua, a high damage utility pick who targets 3 enemies and hits them for 244% of her attack stat while inflicting shocked, which increases the damage they take by 5%. Her stat mix is a bit unorthodox, combining attack, additional damage, and even some defense, but that short cooldown on her active, it's a game changer. She enables powerful shock-based synergies, especially in Ran Lua comps, and contributes solid damage on her own. She may not be the flashiest, but in optimized teams, she brings the electricity, literally. Enter Merlin, the true hybrid mastermind. This 5-star pet breaks the mold with a stat line that blends health, attack, and additional damage, making him a jack of all trades and a master of utility. His active skill not only deals 150% attack damage and freezes all enemies, but also reduces their critical hit resistance by 5%. With nearly 100% uptime on this debuff, Merlin is invaluable in crit-based comps that need a little help getting those sweet yellow numbers. He may not boost your primary scaling stat directly, but the flexibility and team-wide value he brings is unmatched. And finally, Tiamat, Athena's chaotic cousin. She deals 244% attack damage to all enemies and reduces their defense by 10% for 3 seconds. That active makes her a nightmare for high DF, high crit resist enemies, like, say, herself in the Tiamat daily boss fight. Stat-wise, she swaps out Athena's ignore damage reduction for critical resistance, making her slightly more PvE leaning, but no less powerful. With strong offensive stats and a DEF shred to push your entire team's damage higher, Tiamat earns her place in the S tier spotlight with ease. In short, if you're running one of these pets, you're not playing smart, you're playing savage. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.